Okay,
Welcome.
good. Good. Now you can hear me. Okay. Hello, everybody.
Good evening, Honorable.
Okay. So tonight we're going to be talking about Bodhisattva practice in daily life.
Jadi hari ini kita akan membahas tentang praktik bodhisatwa dalam kehidupan sehari-hari.
And I still have the list of questions left over from last time.
Dan
So
masih ada pertanyaan yang belum terjawab dari pertemuan sebelumnya.
there's just 4 questions from last time. So I'll weave them into the talk about Bodhisattva practice in daily life.
Dan kita akan bahas dalam diskusi kita hari ini tentang praktik bodhisatwa dalam kehidupan sehari-hari.
So last time, if you remember, we talked a lot about being addicted to your, to your devices and to, your Twitter and everything like that. So there's a couple of questions regarding that and then some other topics.
Ya, sebelumnya kita bahas betapa terikatnya kita kepada gadget kita, akun-akun Twitter, dan hal-hal seperti itu.
Okay, but first, let's start and, watch our breath for a minute or two, calm the mind down.
Oke, mari kita mulai. Kita tenangkan pikiran, amati nafas selama 2 atau 3 menit.
So calming our mind by watching our breath is definitely a bodhisattva practice that we can do in our daily life.
Menenangkan pikiran dengan mengamati nafas adalah suatu praktik bodhisatwa yang kita dapat lakukan dalam kehidupan sehari-hari.
And then let's generate our motivation.
Mari kita tumbuh kembangkan motivasi kita.
And this is a powerful way for coming together as a group, because if we all share the same motivation, we're all going in the same direction.
Ini akan menghasilkan suatu energi yang baik, karena kita berbagi motivasi untuk pergi ke arah yang sama.
So we're going in the direction of Buddhahood. We want to become fully awakened.
Kita semua beraspirasi menuju kebudaan untuk mencapai penggugahan sempurna.
So to do this, we need to generate the bodhicitta, the aspiration to become a Buddha, for the benefit of all beings.
Untuk mencapainya, kita harus menumbuhkan bodhicitta, suatu aspirasi untuk mencapai kebudaan demi semua makhluk.
And to generate bodhicitta, we need to generate great compassion for each and every sentient being equally.
Untuk menumbuhkan bodhicitta, kita perlu menumbuhkan welas asih yang adil dan setara untuk semua makhluk.
So this means overcoming our attachment for some people, our aversion for others, and indifference for most other sentient beings.
Ini berarti kita berupaya untuk mengatasi diskriminasi kita kepada makhluk-makhluk yang lain, berupaya untuk menumbuhkan, mengatasi kebodohan kita.
So here it's helpful to remember that every sentient being, whether we like them or not, whether we know them or not, each one of them is just like us in wanting happiness and not suffering.
Setiap makhluk, siapapun juga, dimanapun juga, sama seperti kita. Ingin bahagia, tidak ingin menderita.
There's no difference between us and them. We're basically the same.
Tidak ada perbedaan antara kita dan mereka. Semua pada dasarnya adalah sama.
So sit with that in your mind and really try to see every living being as somebody who just wants to be happy and doesn't want to suffer. That's the basic core motivation of everybody.
Ya, duduklah dengan perenungan ini bahwa setiap makhluk ingin bahagia, tidak ingin menderita. Ini adalah inti, aspirasi dari setiap makhluk.
So since we're all the same in that regard, let your heart open to all living beings, wanting them to have happiness, just like you want yourself to have happiness, and wanting them to be free of suffering, just as you want yourself to be free of suffering.
Dengan pemikiran ini, bahwa setiap makhluk ingin bahagia, tidak ingin menderita, sama seperti kita, maka bukalah pintu hati Anda.
So in that way, let's generate the aspiration to attain full awakening and make that our motivation for sharing the evening together or the morning.
Mari tumbuhkan tekad tersebut, aspirasi untuk mencapai kebudayaan, jadikan itu sebagai motivasi kita berkumpul pada kesempatan kali ini.
And open your eyes and come out of your meditation.
Silakan buka mata dan keluar dari meditasi.
Do you need to get some tissues, Mo-Ming?
Yes, Venerable, I'll be back. Sorry.
Yeah, please, go ahead. What'd you do? Okay. So I think the essence of the Bodhisattva practice in the daily life is trying to greet all sentient beings with a mind that is kind and that wishes them well.
Ya, esensi dari praktik bodhisattva dalam kehidupan sehari-hari adalah memunculkan pikiran yang ingin agar mereka dalam kondisi sejahtera.
And to do that, we really need to think about other people's situation and look at and really see them as living beings who want happiness and don't want pain.
Kita lakukan dengan cara memahami orang lain bahwa sejatinya mereka ingin bahagia dan tidak ingin menderita.
And not see them as people who can do something for us.
Bukan sebagai orang yang dapat melakukan sesuatu untuk kita.
So, for example, very often we like people because they can do things for us. They're funny, they're entertaining, they give us gifts, they know important people and they can introduce us, so we get something from them. When we look at people like this, then they kind of become like objects for our use, and we don't see them as living, breathing beings.
Oke. Jadi biasanya kita suka atau mau dekat dengan seseorang karena mereka bermanfaat untuk kita. Mereka baik, mereka lucu, mereka dapat mengenalkan kita kepada orang penting. Akibatnya orang lain itu kita anggap sebagai objek, sebagai orang yang membawa keuntungan untuk kita.
And so then when they don't give us what we want, when they don't do things the way we want them to do things, then we get upset and angry.
Akibatnya kita jadi marah, jadi kecewa bila mereka tidak dapat melakukan apa yang kita inginkan.
So emotionally we become like yo-yos. You know that toy that goes up and down, and that's the way we are emotionally. Oh, I like this person. Oh, I don't. Oh, I like them. Oh, I don't. Depending upon whether they fulfill our expectations and our wishes or not.
Ya, akibatnya emosi kita, perasaan kita kepada orang itu sama seperti yoyo, bergantung kepada apakah dia dapat memenuhi harapan kita atau tidak. Jadi kadang kita suka, kadang kita enggak, kadang kita suka dan kita enggak gitu.
Yeah. So you can see that if we look at people in that way, that it's going to be very difficult for us to really connect with them and, really share from the heart.
Bila cara kita seperti itu, maka kita akan sulit untuk terkoneksi dengan mereka dan berbagi dari hati kita.
Okay, so here the first question left over from last time kind of fits in here.
Ada pertanyaan dari sesi sebelumnya, ini pas dengan diskusi kita kali ini.
Okay, so somebody says, I feel sad because my boyfriend just lied to me. Now we broke up. But honestly, I'm finding in my heart that it's really hard to heal. What can I do?
Ya, pacar saya bohong, jadi kita putus. Saya merasa ini sangat menyakitkan, sulit untuk sembuh. Jadi apa yang harus dapat saya lakukan?
Okay. So my first comment to this is good.
Jadi jawaban saya bagus.
Not good that you're finding it difficult to heal, but good that you found out that this is somebody who's not to be trusted.
Bagus bukan karena sulit untuk sembuh, tapi bagus karena ini adalah seseorang yang tidak dapat dipercaya.
Better you find this out now while he was your boyfriend than later when he's your husband.
Lebih baik ketahuan sekarang mumpung masih jadi pacar daripada nanti bila sudah jadi suami.
Okay. Don't you think if somebody is not a person who tells the truth, better to find that out sooner rather than later?
Setuju nggak bahwa bila orang itu tidak jujur, lebih baik tahunya sekarang daripada nanti?
So this actually reminds us of the importance of being a truthful person, because we see that when other people lie, how much it affects us. And similarly, when we don't tell the truth, when we lie, it really hurts others too.
Ini kita renungkan bahwa bila kita bohong, maka itu memengaruhi orang lain, menyakiti orang lain. Nah, ini menjadi satu perenungan untuk kita.
So we may think that lying is okay, at least our lies are okay. Other people's lies are really bad and awful. But when I lie, there was a good reason behind it.
Ya, kita suka berpikir ya, orang lain bohong, saya bohong nggak kenapa-napa, karena saya punya niat yang baik di balik kebohongan saya.
My boyfriend is a real jerk because he lies. But when I lie, I do it out of compassion so I don't hurt somebody else's feelings.
Ya, kalau orang lain bohong itu buruk, tapi kalau saya itu bohong atas dasar belas asih, jadi tidak ingin menyakiti orang lain.
Okay, so we justify what we do. We rationalize what we do. We essentially lie to ourselves about our motivation at the same time that we're lying to the other person about some other issue.
Kita membenarkan kebohongan kita, padahal sesungguhnya kita telah sedang berbohong atas motivasi kita berbohong tersebut.
Okay, so that's reminding us to tell the truth and really the importance of being truthful. That doesn't mean that we need to say things that are offensive to other people.
Ya, ini mengingatkan kita akan pentingnya kejujuran. Tapi ini juga tidak berarti bahwa kita mengatakan hal-hal yang menyakitkan orang lain.
So let's say that your aunt invites you over for dinner and she cooks the food that you cannot stand, that you just do not like.
Misalnya Anda diundang makan malam oleh bibi Anda dan dia masak makanan yang Anda tidak suka.
And in the middle of the meal, she looks at you, and says, "Dear, do you like the food? How do you like the food?"
Nah, di tengah-tengah lagi makan, bibi Anda bertanya, "Sayang, gimana masakannya? Kamu suka nggak?"
And so do you think, "Oh, I better tell the truth." So I say, "Well, Auntie, the food actually stinks. It's horrible. Don't ever make this again when I come."
Lalu karena Anda berpikir, saya harus jujur, kemudian Anda jawab, "Bibi, ini makanannya nggak enak banget. Lain kali jangan masak ginian deh kalau saya datang."
Yeah. That's telling the truth.
Itu jujur.
But Nagarjuna says, to actually for something to be considered the truth, it also has to be kind. It can't be something that we know is going to hurt somebody.
Ya, yang Arya Nagajurna menyatakan selain jujur, perlu juga untuk memahami sebuah kalimat itu harus baik agar tidak menyakiti orang lain.
On the other hand, you can't really say, Auntie, the food's delicious, because that's not really what you think.
Kamu juga nggak bisa jawab, Bibi, ini makanannya enak banget. Nah, kamu nggak bisa jawab itu karena itu bukan yang Anda pikirkan.
So let's back up a step. And what was your aunt's intention in asking how you like the food? What is she really asking you when she says, how do you like the food?
Nah, kita perlu mencari tahu mengapa dia mengajukan pertanyaan itu. Mengapa dia bertanya, gimana kamu suka apa enggak? Gitu.
Yeah. She wants some verification that you care about her and that you appreciate that she cooked dinner because she cares about you.
Dia ingin tahu ya bahwa Anda tahu bahwa dia peduli dengan Anda karena dia masak untuk kamu.
So that's the real question she's asking, isn't it?
Ya, bukankah itu pertanyaan yang sesungguhnya?
So instead of commenting on the food, yeah, you can tell the truth and you say, Auntie, I know that you cook this food because you care about me and you invited me over to dinner because you wanted us to spend some time together because you care, and I really appreciate that. And that's true, and that will answer the question that she's actually asking you.
Anda bisa jawab, terima kasih Bibi, saya tahu Anda peduli dengan saya sehingga Anda masak makanan ini untuk saya dan kita bisa bersama-sama. Nah, itulah jawaban yang benar karena itu adalah pertanyaan yang sesungguhnya dia ajukan.
Okay, does that make some sense to you? Does that give you some ideas how to answer sometimes difficult questions?
Ya, ini memberikan gagasan kepada Anda tentang cara menjawab pertanyaan-pertanyaan yang terkadang sulit untuk kita jawab.
So it also has to do with seeing the good side of somebody and not, what they're lacking. So, for example, when you're with your kids, yeah, if a parent is always criticizing their children and telling them you did this wrong and you did that wrong and you and always nagging the child, that's not going to create a very good relationship with the child. And it's also going to inhibit the child feeling good about themselves and having some self-confidence.
Ya. Kita perlu ya untuk melihat sisi baik orang lain. Dicontohkan orang tua kepada anak. Jadi bila orang tua itu terlalu memarahi, melihat sisi negatifnya, maka itu akan membangun hubungan yang buruk dengan si anak. Sebaliknya, bila orang tua mampu menunjukkan hal-hal positif, maka ini akan membantu anak tersebut untuk memiliki sebuah tingkat kepercayaan diri.
Okay. So let's say your child comes home from school, they took a test, they didn't do too well, but they didn't do too badly either. But you really wish they had gotten a perfect score.
Misalnya seorang anak pulang setelah ujian, hasilnya tidak terlalu bagus, tapi juga tidak terlalu buruk. Tapi Anda ingin dia mendapatkan nilai yang bagus.
So you could say, one parent may say to their child, oh, I really wish you had come home with a perfect score, but it's clear that you didn't study well, you're so lazy, and even if you did study, you're so stupid you can't even remember the answers. So I don't know what we're going to do about you.
Jadi ada orang tua yang jawab, aduh kamu ini pulang ke rumah, saya berharap nilai kamu bagus, tapi kamu nggak belajar. Kalaupun kamu belajar, kamu tetap akan lupa. Aduh, udah nggak ada yang bisa lagi diharapkan dari kamu.
When a parent speaks to a child like that, does that kind of speech help the child?
Bila orang tua bicara seperti itu, pembicaraan itu akan membantu si anak nggak sih?
Yeah. We've all had our parents speak to us like that. Did it help you when they did?
Bila orang tua ngomong seperti itu, apakah membantu?
Okay. But another parent could have the same situation. And what they say is, yeah, I see you did the test. You did the best you could. I know that you were really trying. There's a few things on the test that were kind of difficult. So we can go over them together. And in that way, you can, understand the material better.
Ya. Jadi ada orang tua yang jawab, ya saya lihat kamu sudah melakukan yang terbaik untuk ini, kamu sudah belajar, mungkin ada hal-hal yang kamu tidak paham, yuk mari kita bahas bersama-sama agar kamu lebih.
Yeah. And then you sit down with the child and you discuss the material on the test.
Ya, jadi Anda duduk bersama dengan anak Anda dan membahas materi tes dengan dia.
So, if you're the child, how are you going to feel?
Bila Anda seorang
Your
anak,
parents say like that.
bila orang tua Anda seperti itu.
Yeah. You'll think, oh, well, they acknowledge that I did my best. They acknowledge that, I didn't know everything, but they want to help me. And they're going to spend some time with me and help me so that I can learn. So that the child feels very cared for.
Anak itu pasti merasa disayang, diperhatikan karena usahanya diakui bahwa dia tidak paham sebagian hal itu dimaklumi dan kemudian dia akan dibantu untuk menjadi lebih baik.
Okay. So same situation. Parents can speak two very different ways. You're going to have two very different results.
Situasinya sama, ada dua cara untuk merespon dan hasilnya juga akan berbeda.
Yeah. One parent is going to push the child away. The other parent is going to welcome and help the child. That's going to influence how your children relate to you throughout the rest of your life, if you're the parent.
Ya, cara yang pertama itu mendorong anak semakin jauh dari orang tua. Cara yang kedua, mendekatkan anak. Dan cara ini akan memengaruhi hubungan antara anak dengan orang tua.
Okay. How many of you remember being children and your parents said some things to you and you thought, when I have children, I am never going to talk to my child like that?
Oke, berapa orang yang punya pengalaman yang kemudian Anda bilang, nanti kalau saya punya anak, saya nggak akan ngomong sama anak saya seperti ini.
Yeah. Were there things that your parents said to you that hurt you so badly you say, I will never say that to my child when I'm grown up and have children?
Yes. Apakah Anda punya pengalaman ketika kita kecil, orang tua menyatakan sesuatu yang menyakitkan dan Anda bertekad, saya tidak akan katakan itu jika saya punya anak.
And then, how many of you are parents and you find yourself automatically, without even thinking about it, saying those things that you vowed you would never say to your child?
Berapa banyak dari Anda, orang tua, yang ketika kondisinya terjadi, yang ketika Anda bersumpah tidak akan mengatakan hal itu kepada anak Anda, tapi ketika keadaannya datang, Anda melakukannya.
Parents out there, did you ever have that experience?
Orang tua,
the words coming out of your mouth that you said, I never want to speak to my child that way, and they just come out of your mouth automatically. Those awful words.
Ada yang seperti itu, Anda bertekad tidak mengatakannya, tapi ketika situasinya terjadi, Anda secara otomatis mengucapkan kata-kata yang Anda sudah bersumpah tidak akan ucapkan.
Okay. So this happens, because we're very much creatures of habit. But again, for parents here, be careful how you're talking to your child. If you want your speech to be the Bodhisattva's practice, try to speak to your children in a way that shows understanding and encourages them.
Karena kita makhluk kebiasaan, maka itu otomatis kita lakukan. Bila kita ingin mengucapkan kata-kata seperti bodhisattva, maka kita harus melakukan ujaran yang penuh kasih dan mendorong dan memotivasi mereka.
Yeah. And kids, try and say things respectfully to your parents.
Anak-anak, berupayalah untuk berbicara dengan sopan kepada orang tua.
Sometimes when you're young, you just think, oh, my parents, yes, they were kind to me, but they have some qualities that...
Ya, kita sebagai anak suka berpikir, aduh orang tua, ya, mereka baik sih sama saya, tapi kan ya kualitas mereka itu...
Yeah. And so your parents say something to you and you think, what do you know? You're so old-fashioned.
Ya, ketika orang tua bicara, kita bilang, tahu apa sih? Kamu ini udah kuno.
Yeah. These older people, they don't know anything.
Orang tua nih nggak tahu apa-apa.
Yeah. Anytime they need help to text something, they call me.
Ya, ketika mereka butuh untuk kirim pesan, mereka cari saya.
Every time their computer breaks, they call me.
Kalau komputernya rusak, saya yang dipanggil.
Yeah. And so you start being quite rude to your parents. They ask you for help with these devices and you go,
ya, Anda jadi kasar ya, tidak sopan. Ketika mereka minta tolong dengan alat gadget mereka, kamu gitu ya, kayak enggan membantu ya.
So remember that your parents do know some things. It's just that they grew up in a time where they didn't have all these devices.
Ya, ingat, orang tua kita juga tahu sesuatu. Hanya saja mereka sekarang tidak tumbuh atau mereka tidak tumbuh dengan alat-alat atau gadget yang ada sekarang.
And when you grow up and have kids, there will probably be devices around that you are not familiar with, and you'll have to ask your children to help you.
Nah, nanti ya, ketika Anda sudah punya anak, kemudian Anda juga akan bersama dengan alat-alat yang Anda tidak paham. Alat-alat yang anak Anda tumbuh bersama perlengkapan-perlengkapan itu.
So take care and speak to your parents respectfully, and then hopefully your children will speak to you respectfully.
Rawatlah dan berbicara dengan sopan kepada orang tua, dan semoga itu akan juga dilakukan anak-anak kepada kita nanti.
Okay, so talking about devices, some more questions come in from last time. Want to translate that?
Yes, oh ya, sorry. Jadi masih ada beberapa pertanyaan ini seputar tentang gadget ya.
So last time we were talking about being very attached to things, being very addicted to them because we think they're so wonderful and we want to do that, we want to have that.
Ya, kita berbicara tentang kemelekatan, keterikatan kepada benda-benda, dan kita merasa bahwa mereka itu sangat indah dan kita ingin memilikinya.
So somebody says, how about if we're addicted to something good, such as being generous? Are there any good addictions?
Ya. Bagaimana bila kita terikat kepada sesuatu yang baik, misalnya kemurahan hati? Bukankah itu sebuah keterikatan yang baik?
I practice meditation every day, sometimes in the morning and the night. Am I an addict?
Saya bermeditasi setiap hari, pagi dan malam. Apakah itu berarti saya kecanduan?
No, you're not an addict.
Atau tidak tercandu?
There's a big difference between doing something with a kind motivation, like being generous or meditating.
Jadi ada perbedaan antara motivasi ketika kita melakukan kemurahan hati ataupun bermeditasi.
And doing something where you're exaggerating the good qualities of someone or something, and you really want it and you have to get it.
Oke. Dan ketika Anda melakukan sesuatu itu dengan berlebihan, jadi Anda ingin mendapatkannya, Anda sangat ingin melakukan.
Okay, so always wanting to have your phone and check your messages and see what your friends are doing on Facebook and check all your texts and to look at this and that on your phone. That is done with the motivation just, to give yourself some pleasure. Just to give yourself some fun and some pleasure, and it doesn't really have much meaning.
Ya, jadi kita melakukan hal-hal seperti mau ngecek handphone, pengen cek pesan, buka update di Facebook, semata-mata karena kita ingin bersenang-senang, karena kita ingin bahagia, karena ingin mendapatkan hal-hal secara material saja, untuk kesenangan saja.
Okay, but that's very different. The motivation for that is very different than if you like being generous, and so you practice generosity, or because you see the value of meditation in your life, so you meditate on a daily basis. The motivations are very different there. So the last two, being generous, meditating, those are not addictions.
Ya, jadi bermurah hati dan bermeditasi itu bukan sebuah candu atau keterikatan. Yang kita perlu perhatikan adalah motivasi kita ketika kita melakukannya.
Sometimes the word that confuses people is attachment or desire. And in Buddhism, it's defined in a very specific way, those two words.
Ada dua kata yang cukup perlu untuk kita pahami dan dibedakan ya kalau di ajaran Buddha, yang satu adalah keterikatan, yang satu adalah keinginan.
So they're based on exaggerating the good qualities of someone or something, and then really wanting to have it.
Yeah.
And I've got to get that.
Jadi dasarnya adalah melebih-lebihkan kualitas sesuatu atau seseorang sehingga kita sangat-sangat ingin mendapatkannya.
So that's attachment or
Itulah,
desire.
Ya, kemelekatan ataupun keinginan.
But that doesn't mean every time you want something or every time you prefer something, it doesn't mean that you're attached to that thing or that you have desire for it.
Tapi ini tidak berarti setiap saat, setiap kali Anda mau sesuatu, itu berarti Anda terikat atau Anda berkeinginan.
We desire to practice the Dharma. We desire to attain Buddhahood. We desire to become kind people. That form of desire is good. It's virtuous. It's very different than I desire to have tons of money and I desire to be very famous and I desire to have everybody like me and be the most popular person around. Okay, those kinds of things are attachment.
Jadi bedakan ya keinginan yang bajik, mau menjadi Buddha, menjadi orang baik, dengan keinginan yang sifatnya menimbulkan kemelekatan. Misalnya saya pengen terkenal, saya pengen punya uang yang banyak. Nah, jadi keinginan-keinginan yang duniawi itu ya menimbulkan keterikatan.
Okay. So be very clear about the difference between the two meanings that these words can have in English.
Okay.
Okay. Or in Bahasa Indonesian.
Jadi pahami perbedaan antara kemelekatan dengan keinginan ini ya, karena memang ini ada perbedaan dalam konteks bahasa, termasuk Inggris dan bahasa Indonesia.
Okay. Because if we get it confused, then we start to think, oh, every time I want something, it means I'm attached. So therefore, being a good Buddhist means I don't want anything. So I don't want anything. I just sit there all day.
Ya. Karena kalau kita berpikir, kalau saya mau sesuatu, maka ini adalah keinginan dan itu tidak baik. Oleh sebab itu saya tidak mau punya keinginan. Ya udah, saya duduk aja, mager seharian.
Yeah, I'm like a bump on a log. I don't desire anything.
Dan Anda duduk dan bilang, saya tidak mau apa-apa.
So that's not being free of attachment. That's encouraging ignorance and laziness.
Itu bukan bebas dari keterikatan ya, itu malah mendorong kemalasan.
And when you really look at our Dharma teachers, we see that they will have definite preferences and they often know how they want things to be done. Yeah. So our Dharma teachers aren't like bumps on a log just sitting there. I'm just breathing.
Jadi guru Dharma kita itu dia juga punya pilihan ya untuk melakukan sesuatu dan mereka juga tidak hanya duduk saja dan tidak melakukan apa-apa, cuma mengamati nafas saja.
Okay, then the other question also has to do with addiction.
Pertanyaan lain juga berhubungan dengan candu ya.
And the question here is, but what about if I use my cell phone to do my business? And I use my cell phone, for my job. Is that also addiction?
Nah, bila saya gunakan handphone saya untuk kerja, untuk bisnis, apakah itu juga kecanduan?
Normally, I wouldn't think it's addiction, but if you're always on the phone, then maybe it's good to seek some other ways of communicating.
Ya, biasanya saya jawab tidak, tapi bila Anda selalu di handphone Anda, mungkin sudah waktunya mencari cara lain untuk berkomunikasi.
Okay, but if you're using it for your job, for your work, then, I don't think that's attachment or addiction.
Bila itu digunakan untuk pekerjaan, saya rasa itu bukan keterikatan atau kecanduan.
Okay. Clear?
Jelas?
Okay. Then I want to make sure I get the last question in. So normally we sentient beings can be fearful. We see danger or we're anxious about different things happening.
Kita biasanya manusia ya ada rasa takut, ada rasa cemas terhadap apa yang sedang terjadi.
So in the best of times, people may be a little anxious, but here we are in the middle of a pandemic. And so people's anxiety tends to skyrocket.
Ya, kita kondisinya di tengah pandemi, jadi rasa takut orang-orang itu meningkat. Ya.
Okay, so here somebody's asking, please give advice on how we can deal with our fears for about what will happen in the future. I always worry about the future, even if I know it's not good. But I still think about it, especially when I'm alone. I worry and get anxious.
Saya sering cemas, sering khawatir, apalagi bila saya sendirian. Saya tahu ini tidak baik. Apakah ada cara atau teknik bagi saya untuk mengatasi rasa takut ini? Rasa takut dan cemas akan masa depan.
Okay, so this is the mind of fear or anxiety. And the way this mind works is it invents a horror story. Yeah, something terrible that's going to happen. I am the star of this horror story. So I get completely freaked out by it.
Jadi pikiran kita ini menciptakan cerita horor tentang masa depan. Dan kita, ya, diri ini adalah bintang utamanya.
Okay. So it might be, oh, there's COVID-19 in the country. I'm going to get COVID. I'm sure I'm going to be in the hospital, intubated with ICU for 3 years. And at the end of those 3 years, I'm going to die. Oh, and before all that happens, all my family members are going to die and I'm going to be alone. And oh dear, what do we do?
Ada COVID. Aduh, nanti saya kena. Aduh, nanti saya masuk ICU. Terus 3 tahun di ICU. Terus semua keluarga saya juga kena dan mati. Jadi saya mesti ngapain? Aduh, tolong.
Okay, so let's look at that mind.
Oke, mari kita perhatikan pikiran itu.
First of all, has anything bad happened to you yet?
Sudah ada nggak hal buruk yang terjadi kepada Anda?
Have you caught COVID yet?
Sudah kena COVID belum? Not
Huh?
yet.
Are all people who test positive going to get very ill?
Orang-orang yang dites positif itu sakit keras.
Does everybody who does get ill gonna wind up intubated?
Apakah semua yang sakit keras itu kemudian meninggal?
Yeah, there are people that recover.
Ada yang sembuh, bukan?
But in any case, you haven't even got sick yet. So why are you worrying about recovering?
Anda bahkan belum jatuh sakit, jadi kenapa harus cemas tentang sembuh?
So the thing is about worry, anxiety, fear, they're all focused on what is not happening now.
Jadi cemas, takut itu adalah fokus kepada apa yang belum terjadi sekarang.
And all of them involve us dreaming up a horror story. The horror story does not exist out there in the world. We are writing the story.
Kita yang bikin cerita itu, ya. Kita yang menuliskan kisah horor itu. Secara nyata di dunia luar itu tidak ada.
So why are we writing such a horrible story? Why don't we write a good story about the future?
Kenapa sih kita tulis cerita horor seperti itu? Kenapa kita tidak tulis cerita yang bagus tentang masa depan?
Why don't we write the story of, yes, there is a pandemic, but I can be strong. I can be there for other people who are ill, to help them, to encourage them.
Kenapa kita tidak buat cerita yang baik? Oke, ada COVID-19, saya kuat dan saya menolong orang lain yang sedang butuh perawatan.
And even if I get sick, there are doctors, there are hospitals, people will help me. I'm not going to die in the street.
Dan bila saya kena, saya tidak akan mati di jalanan karena ada dokter, ada rumah sakit yang dapat merawat.
But really, being in a pandemic is the perfect time to practice love and compassion and to meditate on love and compassion.
Ya, di tengah pandemik ini waktu yang tepat untuk memeditasikan kasih dan welas asih.
Yeah. So to be able to train our mind like we did at the beginning, to see everybody wants happiness, nobody wants suffering, but there's people out there who are suffering. How can I help them? What can I do?
Ya, untuk melatih apa yang kita aspirasikan di awal. Karena sekarang ini banyak orang yang sedang menderita. Apa yang dapat saya lakukan untuk mereka?
And even if the way we help them is to pray for them, to do virtuous deeds and dedicate the merit for them, yeah, this is a practice of kindness, of compassion.
Kita bisa mempraktekkan kebaikan, welas asih, kita dapat melakukan kebajikan, kita juga dapat mendedikasikan nilai-nilai kebajikan kita kepada mereka.
Okay. Wearing masks, practicing social distancing, yeah, that's also an act of love and compassion, because we want to stop the spread of COVID. So stopping the spread is much more important than, the discomfort of wearing a mask. We can bear that discomfort because we really want to benefit people in society and make sure they don't get sick.
Jadi bagaimana caranya kita dapat mengembangkan welas asih dan kasih sayang itu, ya? Kita dapat menggunakan masker, menjaga jarak agar penyebarannya tidak meluas, dan itu juga merupakan salah satu bentuk kebajikan agar penyakitnya tidak menyebar dan mengurangi orang yang sakit, yang terkena.
And especially when we're worried or fearful, who's the star of our horror story?
Ya, saat kita takut, cemas, siapa pemain utamanya dari kisah horor yang kita buat?
Who are we worrying about? Who are we fearful about?
Kita cemaskan siapa? Kita takut kepada siapa?
Are you afraid for what's going to happen to somebody in Syria who's getting bombed?
Anda cemas nggak kepada atau takut kasihan kepada orang-orang di Suriah yang dibom?
Are you afraid for a migrant who's fleeing oppression in Africa and they're on a boat in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea, and other countries will not let them land, so they don't know whether they're even going to be alive. Do you worry about those people?
Anda khawatir nggak imigran yang gelap, yang tidak dapat mendarat di negara manapun? Anda khawatir kepada orang-orang tersebut?
No, we don't worry about those people. We worry about me, me.
Kita tidak cemas atau memikirkan khawatir kepada orang-orang itu, kita cemas kepada saya, aku, dan saya.
Or even if we worry about somebody else, it's somebody who's important to me. I worry about my family. I don't care beans about your family, but my family I worry about.
Bila itu orang lain, maka yang saya cemaskan adalah seseorang yang bermanfaat untuk saya, keluarga saya, dan orang-orang yang dekat dengan saya. Jadi kalau orang lain saya tidak peduli.
So what do you think about that kind of mind? Is that a virtuous kind of mind, or a mind that is a bit crooked and distorted?
Apa pendapat Anda tentang pemikiran seperti itu? Bukan apakah itu pemikiran yang bajik? Bukankah itu pikiran yang sedikit terdistorsi?
Yeah. Kind of a little bit self-centered mind, you think?
Pemikiran seperti itu kan sedikit egois ya, hanya terpusat kepada diri sendiri.
What about if we turned our attention and thought about the situations of other sentient beings, what they're experiencing?
Bagaimana bila kita mengarahkan perhatian kita kepada makhluk lain, merenungkan apa yang mereka rasakan?
Because you know what's incredible is if we focus on other beings' experiences, our fears somehow evaporate.
Yang uniknya bila kita mengarahkan perhatian kita kepada ketakutan orang lain, ketakutan kita sendiri itu akan lenyap.
Okay. Similarly, our worries evaporate.
Demikian juga kecemasan kita.
So I'll tell you a story from my life. I was some years ago involved in a conflict with some people over a book that was going to be written.
Jadi saya ceritakan satu kisah. Saya pernah mengalami konflik mengenai buku yang akan ditulis.
And these people they went around the back door and they took the manuscript without asking me, and they were criticizing it, and they wanted me to rewrite the whole thing. So I was very upset about this.
Jadi saya kecewa karena waktu itu orang-orang itu lewat pintu belakang ya. Mereka mengambil teksnya, lalu mereka mengkritiknya, dan saya diminta untuk menuliskan ulang.
And so sometimes I would get very angry. Sometimes I would get very worried what's going to happen.
Ya, kadang saya marah, kecewa, dan cemas tentang apa yang akan terjadi nanti.
And at some point during this whole thing, I went to India. I was at His Holiness the Dalai Lama's teachings.
Dan di tengah-tengah masalah itu, saya ke India untuk menghadiri ajaran atau khotbah dari Yang Mulia Dalai Lama.
And so one day I was walking at home after the teachings, and I started to worry again.
Dan suatu ketika saya berjalan pulang, dan saya mulai pulang waktu masih di India, dan saya mulai cemas lagi.
And then I thought, there's over 7 billion human beings on this planet. 7 billion who want to be happy and don't want to suffer.
Jadi ada 7 miliar manusia yang ingin bahagia, tidak ingin menderita.
And many of them are in very difficult situations now with a lot of suffering.
Dan banyak dari mereka yang sedang kesulitan sekarang, begitu menderita.
But how many of them, of this over 7 billion human beings, how many of them are worried and fearful and angry and upset about my situation regarding this book?
Jadi dari 7 miliar itu, berapa orang sih yang cemas, yang takut karena urusan buku ini?
How many? 0.
Berapa?
None. Oh, excuse me.
Oh,
One.
satu.
One
Satu.
person.
Satu orang saja.
And that person happens to be me.
Dan orang itu adalah kebetulan saya.
But the other 7 billion plus minus 1 are not thinking about my problem at all. They don't care. It's not a worry. It's not a fear for them at all.
Jadi 7 miliar plus kurang 1, mereka tidak memikirkan persoalan ini, tidak cemas sama sekali.
So why am I so upset about it?
Kenapa saya sangat kecewa tentang masalah ini?
And I just stopped and I said, wow, yeah, it's really dumb for me to be so worried and upset about this. If all these other billions of sentient beings don't care, it must not be very important for the existence of the world.
Lalu saya pun berhenti dan berpikir bahwa jika 7 miliar orang ini tidak memikirkan, tidak punya kecemasan ini, maka ini bukan sesuatu yang penting bagi eksistensi dunia ini.
So that was very good. After that, I didn't get angry and upset and worried about it anymore.
Setelah itu, saya tidak lagi kecewa, marah, kesel terhadap masalah ini.
Okay. Now, I want to come back to the first question, about the person who's feeling bad because her boyfriend lied and they have broken up.
Ya, kita kembali ke pertanyaan pertama tentang si cowok yang bohong dan mereka putus.
So I think all of us have had a situation of our trust being betrayed, like in this case.
Saya rasa kita punya pengalaman di mana kepercayaan kita itu disalahgunakan, ya.
Sometimes we feel sad, but coupled with our sadness is also anger.
Kadang kita sedih, dan bersama dengan kesedihan kita itu ada kemarahan.
I trusted this person, and this person betrayed my trust.
Saya
They're
percaya
such a jerk.
dan dia menyalahgunakan kepercayaan saya. Dia itu brengsek.
Okay. And so it's easy to stay in anger.
Jadi mudah sekali kita untuk menjadi marah.
And sometimes you feel like if I forgive them, then it's just like saying what they did was okay. But what they did is not okay.
Tapi bila saya diam dan saya maafkan, maka seakan-akan mereka nggak apa-apa seperti itu. Padahal perbuatan mereka itu nggak benar.
Okay. So you can put down your anger and at the same time, with a clear mind, say what that person did. The action they did was unkind. The action they did was wrong. But that doesn't mean that the person is awful.
Iya.
Separate the person and the action.
Anda pisahkan orangnya dengan perbuatannya. Jadi dengan pikiran kita yang jernih, kita dapat memahami bahwa perbuatannya lah yang keliru, yang salah.
And then look at what is behind the anger. Yeah, why are we angry?
Perhatikan kenapa kita marah. Apa di balik kemarahan kita tersebut?
Well, in this case, one reason we could be angry is because we're disappointed.
Ya, salah satu alasannya karena kita kecewa.
We had thought that the person was a very kind person that we could trust, and it turns out they're not like what I thought they were like.
Kita pikir dia dapat dipercaya, tapi ternyata dia tidak seperti yang saya pikirkan.
So we feel disappointed in them.
Kita akhirnya kecewa kepada mereka.
Okay. So, but instead of going from disappointment to anger, think of the kind of suffering that person must have that they thought lying to you was something good that was going to bring them happiness.
Ya, alih-alih kita marah, kita dapat renungkan bagaimana penderitaan orang tersebut karena dia menganggap bahwa berbohong kepada kita itu akan membuatnya bahagia.
That person's very confused.
Orang itu sesungguhnya sedang sangat bingung.
Yeah. And they're in the process of creating the causes for their own suffering because they're lying to other people.
Dan dia sedang menciptakan sebab ya untuk dirinya sendiri karena dia bohong kepada orang lain.
Yeah. So in that way you could have some compassion for this confused person. You don't have to stay stuck in your anger.
Bila Anda punya welas asih kepada orang tersebut, maka kita akan tidak terjebak dalam kemarahan kita.
Yeah. Another reason you may feel disappointed is because you had daydreamed about the future with this person. We're going to go here and go there, and they're going to say these wonderful words to me of how wonderful I am because they love me so much. And I'm going to feel so good when they say that. And we're going to have such a good time together. And you're off in these incredible daydreams about the future.
Alasan berikutnya adalah Anda punya mimpi yang sangat indah bersama orang ini. Kita akan bersama-sama pergi ke sana kemari, dan segala macam mimpi-mimpi indah yang Anda ciptakan dalam pikiran bersama orang tersebut.
Okay. So, why are we disappointed? Because we were living in a fantasy. If we live in a fantasy, whose responsibility is that?
Kenapa kita kecewa? Karena kita hidup di dalam fantasi. Bila kita hidup dalam fantasi, siapa yang sesungguhnya harus bertanggung jawab?
Yeah. Did I ask, it's my responsibility if I live in a fantasy, isn't it?
Ya, bukankah ini tanggung jawab saya bila saya yang hidup dalam fantasi?
Did I ask that other person if they liked my fantasy and were willing to be part of it?
Saya tanya nggak orang itu, kamu suka nggak fantasi saya dan mau ikut bagian di dalamnya?
Or did I just expect that they would go along with it?
Atau saya yang berharap bahwa ya dia akan ikut.
Okay. So you see, sometimes, we had expectations of somebody that we never bothered to ask them if they were okay with us having those expectations. And so then when they didn't fulfill the expectations, we're upset, but they didn't even know that they were supposed to do those things according to us. And even if they knew, you know, our way is not the only way that things have to go.
Jadi bila kita punya ekspektasi kepada orang lain, nah kita tanya nggak gitu, kalau mereka boleh seperti itu. Dan kalau mereka tidak tahu, ya apakah salah jika mereka tidak memenuhi ekspektasi kita? Karena kadang-kadang kita juga tidak kasih tahu ekspektasi kita kepada dia. Dan meskipun mereka tahu, mereka setuju, apakah mereka juga berkewajiban untuk memenuhi ekspektasi sesuai yang kita mau?
Okay. So I hope that I've given you some idea of how to do bodhisattva practice in your daily life.
Ya, semoga saya memberikan gambaran bagaimana Anda mempraktikkan praktik bodhisattva dalam kehidupan Anda sehari-hari.
Okay, and the keys are really being, to be able to discern virtue from non-virtue.
Dan kuncinya adalah kita mampu membedakan antara yang bajik dan tidak bajik.
And then to monitor our own actions. In other words, not just our physical actions, but also what we say and what we think and feel.
Ya, kita dapat mengamati perbuatan kita. Yang dimaksud perbuatan bukan hanya secara tubuh, tapi juga dengan kata-kata dan apa yang kita rasakan.
And try to have kinder thoughts and more realistic thoughts.
Dan berupayalah memiliki pemikiran yang lebih baik, ya, lebih bajik dan lebih baik. Ya.
And then to interact with other people with kindness, with love and compassion.
Dan kita mengembangkan pikiran dan hati kita dengan welas asih dan kasih sayang.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so I think there might be a few minutes for questions and maybe answers.
Mungkin kita masih punya beberapa menit untuk pertanyaan ya, dan jawaban.
Ya, terima kasih. Thank you, Venerable, for this wonderful teaching. So we go straight to the Q&A. There are some questions directly private to me. So mungkin saya bacakan sesuai urutan ya, Ko ya. Jadi semoga cukup nih, ada beberapa pertanyaan yang sudah masuk. Ini yang pertama saya posting dulu di chat, minta tolong Komuming untuk terjemahkan ya, Ko ya. Pertama dari Angelica Yusnita. Ketika orang lain sudah berusaha keras dan terus gagal, dan sebagai orang terdekat, tentu kita ingin memberikan dukungan yang terbaik. Namun seringkali mereka justru tersinggung dan tidak menerima dukungan kita. Bagaimana respon terbaik untuk orang itu? Bisa diterjemahkan.
Respon kita ya terhadap
kita terhadap orang itu.
Venerable, this is question related about the cases like this. Let's say there is someone we are close with, and he or she has done the best, but she still fails. And as a close person, as a close friend, we give support. But sometimes it happens that they get offended and they don't want to support. They want to accept our support. So how can we give response or give support to our close one who fails in their let's say their work?
Okay. First of all, if people don't want help or support, don't push it on them. That's not going to help at all.
Okay, so jadi jangan memberikan dukungan bila orang itu tidak butuh ya.
Because sometimes our wish to help them, in our mind, there's the thought of, I know what's best for you. You should follow my advice because my advice is perfect. And you failed, So change what you're doing and do it my way.
Ya, karena dalam memberikan nasihat kita itu suka berpikir, saya tahu yang terbaik, saya tahu apa yang harus kamu lakukan, kamu harus berubah dan ikutin cara saya.
So if there's that kind of thought somewhere in your mind, then it's not really help that you want to give. It's actually trying to control them.
Ya, jadi dengan pemikiran seperti itu, kita sebenarnya bukan mau nolong, tapi kita ingin mengendalikan mereka.
So if somebody failed and they feel bad and they need some time just to be alone and figure things out, let them be.
Oke, jadi bila ada yang gagal dan kemudian merasa sedih, ya biarkan saja mereka dalam kondisi itu.
Or recommend that they speak to somebody else who it may be easier for them to hear advice and encouragement from.
Ya, Anda bisa minta mereka bicara dengan orang lain yang dapat mendorong mereka.
And also, let's remember that failure is really not so bad. Okay, we all fail at some time or another.
Ya, jadi kegagalan itu nggak buruk-buruk banget. Ya. Ingat bahwa kita pernah gagal. Suatu ketika kita pernah mengalami kegagalan.
The question is, after we fail, do we pick ourselves up and keep going? Or do we just sit there and feel sorry for ourselves and get angry?
Pertanyaannya, saat gagal, apakah kita bangkit kembali atau duduk merasa menyesali diri sendiri?
I once asked a friend who had a friend who was involved in looking at the applications for graduate school at an American university. So this person had to evaluate who to accept as a student in the university and who not to accept.
Ya, jadi ada satu kawan yang tugasnya memeriksa siapa yang akan diterima di universitas dan siapa yang akan ditolak.
And so he was asked, what criteria do you use to see if it's somebody that you want to accept or reject? And this was in terms of being a graduate student in a science discipline.
Nah, jadi pertanyaannya, kamu memutuskan orang ini diterima apa tidak, pakai kriteria apa?
And this man who worked for the admissions department said, I observe how they are after they fail.
Dia jawab, saya mengamati apa yang mereka lakukan setelah mereka gagal.
Because he said, in science, when we do experiments, lots of times things do not go according to our hypothesis. And the experiment falls flat.
Jadi kalau di sains itu, ya, sering sekali eksperimen itu tidak berhasil seperti hipotesa kita. Jadi sering sekali mengalami kegagalan.
And a lot of people could be, expecting a certain thing, or a lot of people may have spent a lot of money supporting this scientific endeavor, and it didn't go the way that you thought it was supposed to go. So he said, I look at how people are after that situation happens, when they fail.
Karena penelitian itu butuh biaya, butuh dukungan, dan tidak selalu dapat menghasilkan. Makanya saya akan lihat cara orang tersebut merespon setelah mereka mengalami kegagalan.
Because he said, well, everybody fails, but what do they do after they fail?
Karena setiap orang gagal. Pertanyaannya, apa yang mereka lakukan setelah mereka gagal?
Yeah. If you're a scientist and you fail and you just give up, then better you don't go into that field. It's not good that you attend the university and major in that topic because it's just not going to work for you.
Okay. Sebagai ilmuwan kita harus menerima kegagalan, dan bila tidak dapat menerima kenyataan ini, maka masuk kuliah dan tidak mampu mengatasi hal ini, maka tidak ada gunanya.
Yeah. So maybe if your friend or relative did what you call failure, don't get so upset about it, because it's an opportunity for them to grow and develop their resources in a really wonderful way.
Ya, bila teman kita gagal menurut kita, bisa saja itu merupakan sebuah kesempatan bagi dia untuk berkembang, untuk mengembangkan kemampuannya dan mengembangkan kapasitas-kapasitasnya.
Yeah. So don't go say to your friend or relative, boy, you really failed and I'm here and I want to help you. That's not going to work.
Dan jangan ucapkan seperti ini, oh kamu gagal, sini saya bantu. Nah, cara seperti itu tidak akan berhasil.
Yeah, you can say it's too bad things didn't happen the way you would have liked, but I bet there's a whole lot you can learn from this situation that will really help you in the future.
Ya, Anda bisa sampaikan ada banyak hal yang dapat Anda petik, hikmah-hikmahnya dan pelajarannya yang dapat Anda gunakan di masa mendatang.
Oke.
Oke, ini pertanyaannya tiba-tiba banyak sekali yang sudah masuk. Saya tidak tahu ini cukup atau enggak waktunya, karena kita sampai jam 11 aja ya, masih ada 20 menit. Kita cobalah secepat mungkin kok ya. Mungkin bisa minta.
Ini aja yang kurang lebih lama ya, nature-nya.
Bingung sih kok pertanyaannya, spesifik semua sih. Oke, kita coba lanjut ke ini dari Marcella Jayanti. Saya ingin bertanya bagaimana jika dalam lingkungan pertemanan, terkadang kita berbohong untuk memperbaiki hubungan pertemanan kita antara kita dan sahabat kita yang sedang bermasalah. Apakah itu salah?
Oke, bentar. Saya lagi cari chatnya ini. This is related to telling truth or lie. Sometimes, in order to build or to maintain our good relationship with friends, we have to not telling the truth. What's your comment on this?
I don't accept that. Okay.
Straight answer.
Because if there's something we want to lie about, because we're afraid the other person will be upset, what did we do that we need to cover up?
Ya, oke.
Yeah.
Jadi saya tidak akan terima kata Venerable. Jadi kalau kita harus berbohong, sebenarnya apa sih yang sedang kita tutupi?
Did I betray their trust? Did I break a promise? Yeah. If I did something that, is unethical, I need to own it and say I did this and express my regret and make amends.
Ya, bila saya melakukan hal yang tidak baik, saya harus akui, saya harus katakan, dan saya harus berupaya untuk memperbaikinya.
Yeah, lying in order to, how do I say it politely? Lying to keep a good reputation is no. That's just attachment to our reputation. We're being fake. We're not being an authentic person.
Kita jadi palsu ya, kita tidak jadi siapa diri kita. Dan bila kita berbohong demi reputasi kita, maka kita melekat atau terikat kepada reputasi tersebut.
Okay. So if we did something that we know the other person's not going to like, I think it's better that we're frank and we're honest and we deal with the situation. Because if we lie to preserve the friendship, for sure, sometime or another, they're going to find out that we lied. And then what happens?
Lalu kita perlu renungkan juga ya, bahwa bila kita berbohong demi menjaga sebuah hubungan, maka suatu ketika juga nanti ketahuan gitu. Nah, lebih baik kita bisa jujur, kita terbuka, kita ungkapkan apa adanya.
So I think there's two things here. First, don't do things that we're going to feel, don't do things that we don't want anybody else to know about. Yeah, don't do things that we're going to have to cover up for later, dishonest, unethical things.
Jadi ada dua hal penting di sini, berhenti ya untuk melakukan hal-hal yang harus kita tutupi suatu hari nanti. Hal-hal yang sifatnya tidak jujur.
And if we do something that is unethical, then let's admit it, make amends, clean it up.
Dan bila kita lakukan hal yang tidak ethical, kita akui dan kemudian kita perbaiki.
Now again, does that mean that, let's say your parents said, do not go to the Buddhist temple. I don't want you going there, but you like to go. Yeah. So does that mean that you go to the temple and you come and you say, Mom, Dad, I didn't listen to what you said at all, and I went and I don't care what you think?
Atau bila ada satu case, orang tua tidak setuju Anda ke wihara, lalu Anda tetap saja pergi gitu. Aku nggak peduli, ya Maya, aku tetap pergi. Nah, apa pendapat Anda tentang kondisi ini?
Okay. You don't need to tell your parents everything. If you went to the temple and you talked with some friends at the temple, you can say to your parents, I was out spending some time with my friends. Okay, which is true.
Okay. Anda bila bisa bilang, ya saya pergi keluar menghabiskan waktu bersama dengan beberapa kawan. Dan itu benar.
On the other hand, if you were out drinking or taking drugs, yeah, then don't say to your parents, I was just out with my friends. Because you know that what you're doing was not something that is conducive for your own or other people's happiness.
Ya, dan sebaliknya bila Anda keluar nongki-nongki minum sama kawan, jangan bilang sama orang tua, ya Ma, saya lagi keluar pergi dengan kawan. Ya, nah itu bukan hal yang tepat karena itu akan tidak berkontribusi kepada kebahagiaan seseorang karena perbuatan kita itu tidak baik.
Oke.
Ya.
Oke, kita lanjut ya. Ini banyak banget pertanyaannya. Ini kita ya sudah sortir sih kok. Jadi ini dari yang mahasiswa ini ya.
Oh, pas ke chat room kalau kamu pilih. Saya bisa baca langsung di chat.
Oke. Saya pas ini dari Veronica.
Ya.
Namo Buddhaya, sebelumnya perkenalkan saya Veronica Juliasan dari Unsri. Venerable, saya ingin bertanya bagaimana cara kita agar bisa menentukan konsep hidup kita dan bagaimana pendapat Venerable tentang manusia yang ideal. Itu seperti apa?
Konsep hidup.
Agak berat ya.
Kadang-kadang pertanyaan itu nggak relate dengan bahasa Indonesianya. Oke, let me try. Venerable, my name is Veronica Julia, and I would like to ask questions. How can we find our life concept, and what do you think about ideal human being?
How do we find our what?
Life concept. I don't really understand what it means by life concept. But probably, I'm sorry if I try to understand this. How can we find our goal of life, and what Venerable think about ideal human? What kind of ideal human it is? Is it?
Well, ideal human in whose eyes? Does ideal human mean somebody that nobody else criticizes?
Jadi manusia ideal yang seperti apa yang dimaksud? Di mata siapa? Apakah itu bermaksud seseorang yang tidak boleh dikritik orang lain?
What's the definition of an ideal human being? That they do everything that I want?
Ya, manusia ideal itu seperti apa? Melakukan semua yang saya mau. Sorry, probably in general, what kind of ideal human being? I mean, when we live in this world, how should we behave ideally? That's probably
Okay. Sorry, I didn't understand. Yeah, I would say listen to the Buddha's teachings and practice according them, because they really explain to us what are good qualities to develop in our life and what are qualities to abandon. And, you know, the Buddha he understands this very well and can describe it very well to us.
Pelajari dan praktekkan ajaran Buddha sehingga kita tahu hal-hal apa yang harus kita kembangkan dan hal-hal apa yang harus kita tinggalkan. Karena Buddha sangat jelas mengenai hal ini.
So, you know, if you were listening today about qualities, you know, that are good to develop, certainly truthfulness, equanimity, that does not have attachment and aversion and apathy towards others, love and compassion that are spread equally to others, wisdom.
Ya, topik kita hari ini juga membahas hal-hal yang harus kita kembangkan, seperti kearifan, kemudian jujur, lalu welas asih yang tanpa diskriminasi, dan juga upaya kita mengembangkan kebijaksanaan dengan berupaya mengatasi kebencian, kemarahan yang ada dalam diri kita.
I think really working on what kind of human being am I? What kind of human being do I want to be?
Kita berupaya untuk menjadi manusia yang seperti yang kita inginkan.
And this involves asking ourselves, what are my values? What are my principles? What are my ethical standards?
Ini termasuk menanyakan apa standar, prinsip, dan nilai-nilai dalam hidup saya.
And if I'm not sure about qualities that are beneficial, you know, study the Buddha's teachings and he will explain those qualities as well as how to generate them.
Bila Anda tidak yakin kualitas-kualitas apa saja yang baik, Anda buka ajaran Buddha, Anda akan temukan apa saja kualitas-kualitas baik itu dan cara untuk mengembangkannya.
So things that I do not think should be at the top of your list I don't think having a lot of money is the thing that should be at the top of your list for being a good human being. Being famous, being popular, having high status in society. Yeah. I don't think that those they're nice to have, but those are not necessary for being a good human being and having a happy life.
Untuk dalam konteks untuk jadi manusia yang baik dan punya kebahagiaan, hidup yang bahagia, saya rasa ada beberapa hal yang tidak perlu ada di dalam daftar paling atas, ya. Misalnya punya uang yang sangat banyak, kemudian Anda terkenal, Anda punya reputasi yang baik dan punya standar kehidupan yang tinggi. Saya rasa hal itu tidak perlu menjadi ada di bagian teratas dalam kehidupan Anda supaya bisa menjadi manusia yang baik dan hidupnya bahagia.
Okay.
Yes.
Oke, waktu semakin menipis nih kok.
Yeah, I
Satu
think
lagi
this.
boleh?
Satu
Oke.
lagi, ya. Jadi ini menurut saya mungkin cukup bagus ya. Jadi dari Galaxy Tab ini tidak ada namanya. Venerable, apakah saat kita tidur, pikiran sedang melakukan hal yang tidak baik, seperti marah atau kebencian gitu ya? Apakah itu merupakan karma? Dan bagaimana mengatasinya?
Vulnerable. When we sleep, sometimes the mind do bad things. For example, getting angry. Is that a karma, and how do we take care of that?
Oh, okay. The karma is determined by how you respond to the dream after you wake up.
Jadi karmanya itu berhubungan dengan cara Anda memberikan tanggapan setelah Anda sadar, bangun.
Yeah. So if you were angry in a dream and you dreamt that you beat somebody up, when you wake up, then feel regret, even though it was a dream. Say to yourself, I'm glad it was only a dream. I don't want to harm anybody in a dream or in my life.
Ya, bila Anda mimpi memukuli orang lain, itu pada saat bangun Anda sadar dan Anda ucapkan, saya menyesal, ya, rasa penyesalan. Oh, untung ini cuma mimpi. Dan ungkapkan bahwa dalam kehidupan nyata juga saya tidak ingin memukul atau menyakiti orang lain.
Because if you think like that, then there's no negative karma. You know, you had no intention of doing that. You don't want to do that. You made a strong intention, at least in your waking life, you know, that you can control more to not get involved in that action. So there's, in terms of bad karma, it's, you know, you're not creating.
Ya, jadi karma itu karena ada dasar niat dan perbuatan. Ya, dan makanya setelah kita sadar dalam kehidupan kita yang sadar ini, kita berusaha bertekad menyatakan untuk tidak mau menyakiti orang lain. Dan ketika kita sadar itu, kita bersyukur bahwa itu cuma mimpi saja.
But on the other hand, if you had a dream where you were angry and you beat somebody up and you wake up and you go, wow, I really wish I could do that, then you create negative karma.
Lalu sebaliknya ya, Anda mimpi, lalu Anda bangun, wah, aduh, gue pengen pukul tuh orang, sayang kalau cuma mimpi. Nah, bila Anda berpikir seperti itu, maka Anda melakukan sebuah karma.
Oke, jadi ini karena waktu sudah menunjukkan hampir jam 11 di waktu Indonesia, tapi di Amerika sana sudah jam 9 malam. Tentunya Venerable perlu istirahat, dan masih banyak sekali pertanyaan yang masuk, dan tidak perlu khawatir, kita mungkin akan tetap menjawab pertanyaan. Venerable akan menjawab dalam kesempatan berikutnya ya, karena kita memang sudah akan menjawabkan kembali dalam waktu dengan Venerable, jadi semoga bisa terjawab di kesempatan yang berikutnya. Mungkin kita bisa ada sedikitnya pelimpahan jasa ya, sama Venerable ya.
Yeah, Venerable, I think it's because of the time, and it's almost 9 p.m. there, and we still have some questions. And Darwin said, hopefully that we get a chance to come back to those questions later in the future. And since the time is almost up, we are going to do some merit dedication to close the session.
Good. Okay. So you can do the dedication of merit as you usually do.
Yeah. Okay. Kita boleh melakukan pelimpahan jasa sesuai dengan yang biasa kita lakukan.
Ya, Darwin.
Oke, nanti di akhir sesi kita ada pelimpahan jasa sih.
Ya. Langsung aja sekarang, Win. Beliau udah siap itu.
Oh, gitu.
Kamu yang mimpin aja.
Ada slide-nya sih kok.
Silakan.
Michael bisa tampilin slide pelimpahan jasa. Kita langsung lanjutkan pelimpahan jasa aja.
Please Go ahead, Moming. Lead the.
Oke, pakai bahasa Indonesia aja ya. Ibu Bapak, saudara-saudari sedharma, mari kita lakukan pelimpahan jasa. Di full screen dong, nggak kelihatan ini. Ya. Baiklah, kita baca dalam hati. Saya bacakan, Ibu Bapak boleh ikuti dalam hati. Marilah kita menyalurkan jasa-jasa kebajikan yang telah kita peroleh kepada semua makhluk yang membutuhkannya. Semoga jasa-jasa kebajikan yang kita telah kumpulkan dari sesi pada hari ini dapat melimpah kepada semua makhluk, kepada para leluhur, dan semoga dapat menjadi parami untuk pencapaian kebudayaan kita. Semoga bodhicitta yang belum tumbuh dapat tumbuh, semoga bodhicitta yang telah tumbuh berkembang tidak menurun, dan semoga bodhicitta yang telah tumbuh dan berkembang dapat menjadi lebih luas lagi. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you, Venerable, for the session today.
Okay, thank you for translating.
We are looking forward to have another blissful moment and teaching with you.
Okay, good. And thank you everybody who organized it and everybody who attended.
Thank you, Venerable.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Okay.